Mr. President, I've always said that being a superpower means more than super military might. It means more than super diplomacy. It would contain restraint and super fiscal responsibility. All these as part of being a superpower. Admiral Mullen, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, once said the greatest threat to our national security is our debt. Not another nation, not another army, not fear of terrorism, but basically our debt. The U.S. has and will continue to have the greatest military in the world. But in order to remain the most powerful, we have to get our financial house in order. I think we all agree on that, but we don't seem to be practicing it very much. I fully support Senator Reid's amendment, basically by fencing the OCO funding. If you look and see how we've gotten ourselves into the situation we have now, it's not Democrat or Republican, it's all of our faults, and it's all of our responsibility to fix it. Basically, we've had two wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, we didn't fund. We did it through accounting procedures, emergency procedures, contingency funds, and now we continue to expand upon that if we go down this route without fixing it with Senator Reid's amendment. Ensuring the safety of the American people doesn't mean increasing defense spending to fund never-ending wars in the Middle East while ignoring non-defense programs that are also crucial to our national security. And I've said this over and over again. If you think money and military might would fix that part of the world, the United States of America would have done it by now. For years, critical non-defense programs such as the Department of Homeland Security and the State Department have been forced to absorb damaging across-the-board cuts. They are also extremely important in safeguarding the homeland. While we continue to keep in place the budget caps for these agencies, we have underhandedly gone around spending limits and improperly increased war funding. The most recent gimmick that we're talking about, that's been explained about, is an attempt to transfer roughly $39 billion from the base budget to the OCO budget to increase funding for overseas conflict. I've said time and again that after a decade of war in the Middle East costing more than $1.6 trillion, does anyone believe that we haven't done our part and tried? If money and might would have changed it, we would have done it by now. What's more important, that we're denying the funding from other important programs that desperately need these funds to keep our country stable and safe and secure. In order to be truly secure, we need our non-Department of Defense departments and agencies to be able to function at full capacity also. The Pentagon simply cannot meet the complex set of national security challenges without the help of other government departments and agencies. We're all in this together. We're all responsible to protect this country, but we're all responsible to make sure that we can properly ensure that people have the opportunity to take care of themselves also. As retired Marine Corps General Mattis said, if you don't fund the State Department fully, then I need to buy more ammunition. He might have said that in jest, but I think underlying it, he really meant it. And last week showed how vulnerable our networks are to cyber attacks that foreign nations and those who wish us harm. We've had a cyber bill before us for many years now. We've been told on almost a weekly or a monthly basis the threat that we face from all different countries trying to hack in and do us harm, yet we haven't been able to move because of the toxic political atmosphere that we have here. Our national security is also inherently tied to our economic security. Failures to invest in programs like STEM education, infrastructure projects are short-sighted. Failing to provide the BCA cap relief to non-DOD departments and agencies would also shortchange our veterans who receive employment services, transition assistance and housing, the homeless, support through other agencies such as Department of Labor. The bottom line is that we need to get our long-term budget that reduces the deficit in line. And increasing the OCO money that this bill has in it right now only hurts that goal and makes it much more difficult and elusive. Defense budget needs to be based on long-term military strategy, which requires the Department of Defense to focus at least 5 years into the future. This is only a one-year plan. Do you think it's not going to be extended and extended and extended? Do you think we're just going to start it and stop it in 1 year? I don't think so. The fiscal responsibility approach we need to take is fixing the BCA caps. We're hearing about the whole thing of sequestration, how horrible it is. Well, let me tell you how you can fix it. Sit down and put a budget that's realistic, that puts our long-term financial plan solid. That's all it takes. yet we're unwilling to do it. We're just condemning it. We're condemning it because it constrains how we want to do business, which means not being held accountable or responsible. That's all. Every meeting I go to, whether it's non-discretion or military spending, we all need more to expand programs. Yet we never take the GAO's report. General Accounting Office says we could save $300 to $400 billion a year if we would just get rid of the waste, the redundancies that goes on. We're not doing anything about that. And I say again, our national debt is not a Democratic problem or a Republican problem. It's all our problem. We all own this one. In 2008, our country faced one of the worst financial crises in our nation's history. We added $1 trillion to our debt on top of the trillions of dollars already spent, 2 costly wars, and the Bush tax cuts, which President Obama basically extended twice. Between the wars, the tax cuts, the recession, and our out-of-control spending, our nation's debt has exploded from $5 trillion to $18 trillion. Currently, our deficits are decreasing from $1.4 trillion in 2009 down to a little under $500 million, according to the CBO. And it's expected to remain stable for the next couple of years. The bad news is that after 2017, if we don't change our ways, the deficits are projected to increase over $1 trillion a year through 2025. Unless Congress can put aside partisan politics and put the country on a fiscally sustainable path, we will add over $7.5 trillion to our debt in the next 10 years. That's adding $7.5 trillion to $18 trillion of debt we have right now. There's no way the next generation or generation after will ever be able to dig out of this hole if we don't fix it now. But we have to be smart about how we reduce spending. As we saw in the 2013 sequestration, indiscriminate, across-the-board cuts harm good and bad programs alike, did nothing to reduce waste and abuse, and caused individuals to be furloughed or lose their jobs. I've always said this: when you start cutting, you don't cut basically the things that continue to make progress for you. When we don't do, the IRS doesn't do its job, and it's incapable of doing that, with revenue that's owed to this country and to the taxes that people should be paying, you can't cut back on that and expect it to be solid. I've pushed hard for bipartisan compromise that will reduce spending, fix our broken tax system, reform entitlement programs in order to reduce our debt and provide the economy with certainty and stability. For instance, we could enact $2.5 trillion in deficit reduction over the next 10 years if we'd have just followed the Simpson-Bowles recommendations. It's an all-encompassing approach that raises revenue, promotes growth through comprehensive tax reform that brings our tax code into the modern age, increasing efficiency, simplifying the process of both individuals and businesses. Additionally, the plan enacts serious entitlement reforms and makes additional targeted spending cuts aimed at long-term deficit reductions so that we can encourage economic growth. It's crucial that we make the necessary reforms that will make this nation a better place for future generations. With it being said, I again express my support for Senator Reid's amendment to the defense budget that would block any additional, unnecessary, unaudited spending for a continual war effort that we have no oversight. We were elected to basically look at the process that we have. So I asked for an extra 2 minutes, if I could, to finish.
Is there objection? Without objection.
With that being said, Mr. President, all I'm saying is we should be smart, learn from our past and our experiences that we've had. It hasn't worked well for us right now, and we can change it. We're the only ones that can change it. This country has a strong economy, could be even stronger if we work together. The bottom line is we want to be smart. We want to be smart where we invest our money, where we send our troops and put Americans in harm's way. We want to be smart in the domestic investments we make here in this country. We want to make sure that they're working. If they're not working, then you know what? Don't be afraid to say, hey, I tried and it didn't work. I'm going to try something differently. And then basically, if you see two programs doing the same thing, consolidate them. Let's start looking for ways that we can run this country the way each American is expected to run their life. Every small business or large business is expected to make prudent investments and work efficiently. That's all we've asked for. This type of spending, basically unaccountable, will lead us down a path to increase the debt and doesn't make us any more secure and gets us involved in places that we don't have any oversight and we don't have any input. I do not, as a U.S. Senator, wish to walk away from my responsibilities to make recommendations what I think would be best for not only the West Virginia people that I represent, but this entire country, which I love. So with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.